Good afternoon and welcome to the special edition of the Federal Executive Forum celebrating 15 years of profiling IT mission programs in the federal government. This is our 8th annual Profiles in Excellence program, which will be coming to you from the virtual studios of WTOP and the Federal News Network. I'm Luke McCormack, and during today's show, we will discuss IT program success stories at numerous government agencies and hear from the key leaders making them happen. With me on today's show are Maria Roat, U.S. Federal Deputy Chief Information Officer at OMB, Karen Evans, Chief Information Officer at the Department of Homeland Security, Jim Jaffer, Assistant Secretary of IT and Chief Information Officer at Department of Veterans Affairs, Rocky Campione, Chief Information Officer, Department of Energy, Nick Saki, Federal Principal Engineer, Pure Storage, Scott Crowder, Chief Information Officer, BMC Software, and Greg Ostrowski, Regional Chief Technology Officer at AppDynamics. All right, well, it's been one heck of a year, and I was thinking to myself this morning, Maria, that if we had 2 more CIOs, we could have a council here. Wanted to start with you and just ask you in particular, give us, an example of a program that you want to discuss your best accomplishment, mission success, and just sort of outline, your initiatives and goals and strategies and how you've achieved that success this year.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, Luke. This year has just really been an incredible year, and it's been business not as usual for the tech community. CIOs just across the board, they really had to deliver. And when I look across the federal government, the federal government transitioned to telework, and they didn't miss a beat. The CIOs, certainly a shout out to all of them, but the CIOs were responding to telework, the increased mission requirements. There was a sense of urgency, resource sharing, and that responding to guidance almost daily. So when I step back and I look at mission program success, I'm looking across the entire federal government and all these things that were happening concurrently, right? The telework, responding to the CARES Act, and really flipping over to being able to deliver digitally. And this was really the success of the investments over the last several years in, just modern infrastructure, zero trust networks, and all that flexibility and scalability of the cloud-based solutions. And it really gave the CIOs the ability to configure those commercial platforms, reusable services. And you saw how fast and how quickly the federal government flipped over not just to telework and serving their employees, that 2.1 million, workforce, but also the American public across the board. The cross-government collaboration was remarkable, right? The information sharing, the resource sharing, the need to collaborate. And this was not just across the federal government, it was vertical with the states as well. And that was data sharing, information sharing across the board. And it was really, again, incredible to see that across the federal government and how everything that was done over the last, several years was built on, and we were able to just flip over with agencies taking advantage of zero trust networks and all of those capabilities, virtual desktops, all of that. And I really think that big success is not only just that transition, but being able to support the mission concurrently and being digital to support the American public. I know my colleagues here, Rocky and Jim and Gary, they will talk about a lot of the efforts that they did. And it was just incredible to see. And I want to say that the CIO Council really came together and they identified not only what was working now, but where we need to go in the future. So I can't say enough about the CIOs across the federal government and the technology leadership that really made the response happen this year.
And hats off to every one of them. It was brilliant to watch it. I mean, it was almost like, they switched over. It was like table stakes and immediately started dealing with, and switched over, I'd say, safely and securely. And then immediately started getting into these higher order up the value chain type things, like you said, addressing the small business owners, the farmers, the veterans, et cetera, et cetera. Karen, how about you over at Department of Homeland Security? You all had a whole bunch of activity going on. It's still due to this day and certainly will tomorrow. And why don't you give us an example of what you would consider your best accomplishment there, or your team's best accomplishment, and sort of focusing on that mission success?
Well, I would really like to build upon the things that Maria said. Coming in, I came in right in the middle of the pandemic. So it was wonderful to start a job, probably first time in all of our CIO careers, where I've started a job where people aren't telling you, although I did get a few phone calls from the secretary's office, but they are telling you about the wonderful ability that they are being able to still perform their jobs without missing a beat. And it was due to the efforts of the CIO and the CIO staff. So this is to Maria's point about all the initiatives that, Luke, under your leadership, and then have continued on about the network modernization, how to move to cloud first, the data center consolidations, making those applications available. The department never missed a beat. It never shut down. It never missed its mission. And it was wonderful to come in when people are saying, hey, if it wasn't for the CIO shop being able to pivot and be able to provide our workforce what they needed to go virtual, we wouldn't still be working. And so that is a unique point in time that people really understand what we meant by network modernization, what we meant by cloud first, what we meant by why you had to do certain things in order to be able to really leverage the capabilities. So that was really very exciting. But if I had to zero in on one particular initiative that the department started that I think was really wonderful and helps us in this new environment, is the Network Operations and Security Center. So it's the consolidation, we call it the NOSC, but it's the consolidation of both Security Operations Center. So it's the optimization and looking at all of that across the board within the components, but also making sure that we can continue to run 24/7, 365. So we've combined our Network Operations Center and our Security Operations Center and really have evolved the services that the department is providing, because we really have now changed the threat landscape of what the department has to deal with. And Maria hit on this a little bit with the zero trust networks, but we really do need to keep ourselves operational. And the traditional model of when an incident happens and you shut down a service, the department can't do that. So we're running more and more like a utility is the easiest way to explain it. You have to keep all the services running while you are analyzing what are the threats? What is that security incident? What is happening? I have to work directly with CISA, with our intelligence community, with our components, so that we can make sure that we are staying operational and our services don't miss a beat. So that had started before actually shifting to a total virtual environment, but we haven't stopped the implementation. We're continuing on. The network assessments and the security operations centers assessments have been completed. And so the department is offering cybersecurity service provider services. We are now a service provider, and you either get it from us or from one of the other service providers that we're authorizing within the department. And that is how we are optimizing our security capabilities and our network capabilities. So I think that is really the next evolution of what the department has to do, and we have accelerated that implementation.
That's fantastic to hear. And, it's, in the country's time of need, right? Resiliency and continuity of government, et cetera, super important. And to have that sort of carrier class, if you will, capability just rock solid with all types of redundancy is super important. And I'm really pleased to hear that and see that. Jim, how about over at Veterans Affairs? I know there's a whole bunch of activity going on over there, everything from all the modernization activity that you all are doing to continue on this journey of, providing that promise to the veterans, et cetera, and all the other stuff you're doing with the cemeteries, et cetera. Why don't you highlight, sort of a specific area that you'd like to put a spotlight on for an accomplishment for this year?
Yeah, sure, Luke. Thanks. And great to join all my fellow colleagues here this morning. I guess the first thing I'd say is one of my favorite sayings is luck is where preparedness meets opportunity, or in this case, where it meets a threat. Sometimes you'd rather be lucky than good, but I think part of that, goes hand in hand. We certainly, like a lot of other federal agencies, we're on our modernization journey. As I've stressed with the department, if we hadn't done the things we've done in the past 2 to 3 years, there's no way we would have weathered this pandemic. And so I think it was about thinking differently. One of our senior leaders said, the whole notion of a black swan event is nothing in the sum total of your experiences really prepared you to address the challenges you're going to confront. And so, I'll give you a great example of that. I remember there was a story about 10 years ago about a secretary in an Eagle Horizon exercise looking at our CSOC director and saying, hey, of the 4 trusted internet connection gateways, can you drop one? And there was an audible gasp in the room that we would drop a TIC gateway. We were stress testing in our environment real time in March. We dropped 3 out of the 4 gateways to stress test. I mean, and it was, some people consider that sheer insanity. We did what we had to do to really put the pressure on our gateways, on our infrastructure, and then get those metrics over to our carriers and our infrastructure providers, our vendor partners, to make sure that we could do all of the upgrades. Because again, VA was, unlike other agencies, VA is largely an on-premise agency delivering care, benefits, and memorial services. And so this was a major, shift in terms of workforce and how we delivered. So I would say that was the one thing that I'm most proud of, is how we're able to quickly stress test, engage with our vendor partners, get those upgrades. And then similar to Karen's story, when folks started kind of trickling back in, especially in DC in June, the response was, wow, hey, IT really came through for us, right? Almost like a surprise. I think, the story that I continue to tell in the department is those gains are perishable, right? We need to continue to modernize, continue to upgrade our infrastructure and invest. The other one, I know we don't have a whole lot of time, but I'll say is also impressed with what we did around telehealth. Pre-pandemic, VHA was doing 2,400 telehealth appointments a day. Today, we are doing on the order of magnitude of over 40,000. It's about a 1,500% increase.
Wow.
Again, all of that was supported by IT. We helped the smaller vendors expand their on-premise infrastructure, and then we doubled it by putting it in a cloud environment. That was all through our team. And again, really a tremendous effort that I think everyone on our side is very proud of.
Wow, that is impressive. If by my math, that's 38,000 veterans that are more veterans that are able to receive that type of service, sort of real time, probably within their own homes, and that's just incredible. Now, you made a comment, made a statement, Black Swan event. Can you describe that to the listening audience just so they know what that is?
Sure. I can't give you the exact Wikipedia definition, but it's essentially that once in a century pandemic. Something you only see in a lifetime. Hopefully for us, it's only once in a lifetime. But it's just so differential, catches everybody off guard, and again, really creates a set of circumstances that are you've never seen before.
Absolutely impressive. And it really was impressive to see that, yes, the IT was there, was available, and that didn't become sort of the second order story out there, if you will. Always refreshing to see that. So hats off to all of you, certainly, for that. Rocky, how about over at Department of Energy? Same sort of situation there, right? A lot of modernization activity, a lot of real-time capability, a lot of industrial strength types of things that you all need to keep moving and keep modernizing and ensure that the capabilities out there for the energy infrastructure and everything else. So tell us about, what does that look like this year for you?
Absolutely. Well, it always looks different, but that's what I love about energy. Every day is different.
Yeah.
No, as you said, we talk about what we're proud of, and I think when we're done and we look back as a department, we're going to be proud of a couple things. We kept the lights on and we helped find a cure, right? And that's on the mission side. Our PMAs provide 11% of the electricity of the bulk power to the United States of America.
And PMA is what again? Just so
Power Marketing Administration. Okay. So Bonneville Power, Western Area Power, Southeastern Power, and Southwestern Area Power. So when we moved to a telework environment, we had to make sure their operation centers could be up and running. We had to make sure that the people who keep the lights on had the ability to work remotely or to work where, whether it was on premises in a safe environment because everybody else was out working remotely or working remotely to keep the lights on. We had to make sure that our national labs, some of the greatest scientific minds in the world, had the ability to shift their focus to working on understanding the virus, understanding vaccines, and helping kind of the country as a whole kind of marshal our resources to kind of help find a cure. But we did that, and I think there's a common theme here. We did that because of the work we've done over the last 3 years. So what am I proud of this year? Those are great accomplishments when we look back, but what am I proud of? I'm proud of the preparedness. I'm proud of what we had done for the last 3 years to make sure we could get there. And it's the same theme that I think Karen talked about and Jim talked about of what were we doing to modernize so that when it happened, I'm not proud of the 2 or 3 weeks where kind of my team and IT folks all across the department were rapidly getting out laptops, rapidly getting out RSA tokens, whatever it is to allow people to telework. I'm proud that the foundation was there so that we could telework. I'm also proud that once we were up and running, we didn't just say, okay, great job and move on. We kept moving. We kept accomplishing what our mission was. And that kind of includes everything I've talked about. How do we reduce the barriers to innovation, right? I call it reducing the friction to innovation, but how do we reduce those barriers? So we kept with the normal, what I call day-to-day things of improving how we do ATOs, authorizations to operate, kind of rolling out a rapid ATO process so that we could rapidly move innovations out there as we introduce new technologies, but still be secure. I'm proud of new contracts that we put out, like enterprise agreements. The latest one was with Google for kind of Google Cloud so that we could roll out innovative technologies, rapidly roll out innovative technologies and not have procurement be an issue, right? And within that, that we even had aspects of it that allowed for, in times of need, we can get some free compute for scientific computing. So we even built in the ability, so not only do we rapidly get a contract, rapidly deploy the technology, but we also have built in ways that we can help and kind of fight the virus within that. I'm also proud of just some of the other day-to-day things. We went full operational capability with our big data platform. So how do we analyze cybersecurity data from across the department so that we can better do analysis and better protect ourselves? So a lot of these were just kind of day-to-day things that, of course, I'm proud that we went to rapid telework. Of course, I'm proud that, I'm very proud of the department for helping to keep the lights on so that the VA hospitals have electricity, so that, other first responders can go and do their job. I'm also proud of, what we're doing to help understand the virus and help find a cure. I'm proud of the preparation we've done, but it's the people that we work with. So all in all, it's, sometimes I say I'm bursting with pride. I love the department. I love the people that we work with. I love that we have a sense of mission. And when you have that kind of combination and then the leadership of the secretary to kind of marshal that in the right direction, you can accomplish great things. And over the last year, I think within our office, we've accomplished some great things. As a department, as a team, we've accomplished even more. And when we write the history kind of a couple of years back and we look back, I think that the Department of Energy is going to come out looking really well for how we helped respond to this and how we helped keep the American people healthy and safe and as much as possible living a normal lives, because we have electricity and we have the ability to get our day jobs done, right?
Certainly should be something to be proud of. And certainly if we think about, sort of the basic human needs there, power capability being part of that to enable that is very important. You certainly should be proud of all that. And all of you should be very proud of everything you've done. I certainly am proud to be and an honor to be associated with you here on this program. We're going to take a short break and we'll be right back. You're listening to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network. Welcome back to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network. We're talking about Profiles in Excellence 2020. Scott, let me jump it over to you. I'd like you to discuss your best accomplishments. You guys have a very unique situation there. You know, you're striped across a lot of federal agencies. I'd like you to point out, a program success that you've seen in one of these agencies that you'd like to spotlight for us that has been accomplished this year.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. So, many of you have talked about how you were able to survive through the COVID-19 and really shutting off work from home, or turning work from home on, which was really a big accomplishment for us as an IT team. That's something that, we got the call on March 12th, send everybody home, 6,000 employees are gone. Working from home, working with the security and things like that. I can't say, how important it is for us to all have these types of disaster preparedness plans and actually make them work. I would say with regards to, how we're working with various federal agencies and public sector agencies, one of the things that we've been able to accomplish is really a provisional authorization on IL4. Which is really going to make a big deal for anybody that's wanting to use our ITSM platforms and any other products that really, are beneficial to the federal and public sector markets. Many of you use our products with regards to Control M, ITSM, and many of the automation capabilities that we have. It's hard to highlight a specific project, but I would say that this is a milestone for BMC, and really it's going to take us to the next level, in working with the federal government, really enabling all of the different agencies with regards to our solutions.
Yeah, it's really important that anytime that we're going to lean on this type of technology to enable some of these capabilities that have been described there, we want to make sure it's hardened. We want to make sure it's certified. We want to make sure it's credentialed at the highest level, right? That's certainly very important to have that capability available and have a level of confidence there when they're going to use that type of capability. Greg, let me throw it over to you. You all play once again a key role in it as the various CIOs are describing these capabilities that they've been able to roll out, and not only to enable sort of this new operating environment, but enable all the capability on top of that operating environment. You guys play a big role in that. I'd like you to just give us a highlight of an agency, if you will. Once again, you're another agency or another partner that's striped across a lot of agencies, private sector included,
Yep.
That you'd like to highlight and shine a spotlight on for us.
Yeah, thanks, Luke, and really honored to be on the program today. One thing I'd like to do is really kind of focus on the challenge in the industry that we go after. And you look at the world we live in today, software and applications is really the way that drives the world, right? So if you start thinking about how our daily lives, both professionally and personally, it's all based on software and applications. And the key part here is that these applications have to be very easy to use. They have to be they have to perform at top-notch capabilities of what the user is expecting, and it has to be available 24/7 a day. So you think about the application on the user side, and you look at the way IT has transformed over the last decade. You think 10 years ago, we had a single data center that everything was running in, we had control over. You started to introduce cloud services, and now you started to get this complex architecture for the application space. So on one hand, you have a very simple to use application. On the other hand, you now have an environment or an IT department that is running hybrid, on-premise, some cloud, maybe full cloud. But the challenge to be able to figure out what's going wrong with these applications has gone up tremendously. So where App Dynamics has been helping the agencies, a lot of folks on the call today too, is around giving you that full stack visibility or observability of the application stack, so that you can see every step along the way where there's a challenge with that particular app. The other piece too is, as the pandemic hit, software really helped us get through the pandemic, or working through the pandemic for that matter. But the whole idea is here that folks are being have a tremendous amount of pressure, and they need to have that context of what's going on wrong with their applications. So by App Dynamics giving that full stack observability enables our agencies to be able to go and quickly define and find out root cause of the application issue, be able to resolve it, many cases before the end user population starts to see that there's an issue with the application. And then also knocking down the silos within IT, so that, you know, traditionally folks would focus only on the network or only on the infrastructure or only on the database. But by giving that full sense of truth to be able to lower the mean time to resolution is really where we've been helping our agencies to succeed with their missions.
Yeah, you know, at the end of the day, that capability has to just absolutely be there, right? Resiliency, continuity of government, availability to the veterans, to the, you know, name your mission, right? Super important. Nick, let's throw it over to you. Pure Storage, same situation there. Lots of capability out there that are being enabled to sort of allow us to operate in this this new model, if you will, this certainly cloud smart model. Give us an example of something you'd like to highlight there.
Sure. I think that, you know, over the course of the past year, I want to thank every CIO and leader on this call for your tremendous efforts in support of the United States during this extraordinary time. And Jim, as a veteran and customer of yours, I'm deeply pleased to see the continued improvement on the evolution of the customer-facing services in support of the VA's digital services. It's been cool to watch and fun to use. It's working. We saw, you know, last year was proof of the concept that, you know, what happens when preparedness meets opportunity, and is the culmination of, you know, as some have said previously, about 20 years worth of work. You know, there's 4 things that kind of drive organizational dynamics in the IT space, and it's, you know, people, process, policy, and technology. And technology is easy. But the policies and the thought processes of the leaders and the staffs in terms of the comfort in adopting and the ability to adopt external services and utility computing services, and just making that de rigueur has been hugely transformational. And then having the acquisition vehicles necessary to be able to move the money, also incredibly important. And I think one of the fundamental things that drove our comfort in doing that in government, and from the vendor side, understanding what we had to deliver was FedRAMP. So if we can provide commercial services that meet the government security criteria, it solves a huge problem in terms of adoption. Now, the other thing that we saw was, you know, I want to give a very special shout out in the 2 key areas that we were able to support the government, but most especially the agencies. The Department of Energy has been undergoing a tremendous infrastructure transformation, particularly out in the national laboratories. And we saw an adoption and an insertion of a complete enterprise data center infrastructure at DOE in about 6 weeks. And we're talking multiple dozen petabytes worth of storage that went in and out, the net effect of which was a 90% reduction in power, space, and cooling consumption, a 10x improvement in their overall performance and service efficiency, and the elimination of all of their sustainment technical debt for that infrastructure. It was breathtaking. In my experience, that takes 18 to 36 months to accomplish. And the Sandia National Labs team did it in less than 3 weeks. So it was, 10 racks worth of equipment removed, 1 rack of equipment in place, and a sudden and extraordinary improvement in the operational services at a critical time for the department, as they were resourcing not only obviously their usual scientific and energy research, but making themselves available for the pursuit of COVID solutions and virology, and enabling other agencies to leverage their extraordinary supercomputing capability to solve an immediate emergency challenge for the United States. So that was number 1. The second one, and I'm going to cheat because this was a tie. The Department of the Navy about 2 years ago embarked on a endeavor to create an artificial intelligence as a service platform at Naval Surface Warfare Crane. It was specifically focused around AI and cybersecurity applications. But what they did was, rather than keep that in-house and hug their data silo, they released it on a service catalog to the entire Department of the Navy. And the catalog is actually accessible by the entire DoD. So they set themselves up as an AI and machine learning ops as a service component that the entire DoD can leverage, but very importantly for the DoD, on their own networks. So using their own data on their own networks, there's a tremendous willingness and growing willingness across the departments to share the technology investments that they're making and make them available as a service to other components and other agencies. And that's really cool, because my theory has long been that the government's probably the largest cloud in the world. And now you're starting to see the government agencies act like service providers, even within the US government's own infrastructure.
I can't tell you how pleased I am to hear these stories. Well, I want to roll over into a different type of question. I've been really looking forward to this, and this is about leadership, right? And Rocky, I'm going to start with you, and just as a leader in your agency, right, as an executive of the agency there, and can you just discuss, sort of leading through this situation that you were in, right? A lot of uncertainty, particularly in the beginning with your employees, your own personal situation, all the capability that you had to have available for the entire energy sector, right, et cetera. What does that look like? And then what were you leaning on most? What did you find yourself? Where did you find the strength and, the things that you found yourself sort of leaning on the most?
If you say what I'm leaning on the most, there's the personal answer and then there's the professional answer. So of course, family, community, and that type of thing is what you really lean on day to day. But when you talk about professionally, what do you lean on? What do you lean on to lead people? And it starts with, I used to work for a gentleman named Secretary Bodman, Department of Energy. It's about 2007 and 8, and he had his 10 guiding principles. And I came in, I talked about my guiding principles, but the one that always sticks out is, well, there's two of them. One, treat everyone with dignity and respect. And the other one is, and in the end, always do the right thing. But you rely on kind of your guiding principles. And those are some of them. When I talk to my team, I'm a management by walking around guy. I like to walk the halls and I like to say hi to people. Can't do that right now.
Right.
So you kind of do that by, I call it the random phone call, calling the GS 13 or 14 in the middle of the day and saying, how you doing? What's going on? What works? What doesn't? But really what that's all about is you care about people, right? And so I talk to the team a lot when you talk about leadership in this environment where people are working hard and people are kind of focusing on the mission. I always say people, look, caring about people is not in our professional PD, right? No one has, maintain the network, ensure cybersecurity, care about people, right? It doesn't say that in your PD. I go, but it is in our PD for life, right? As a member of the human race, we need to care about people. So tell everyone, check in on each other as we work remotely. You're not seeing them every day. If you know somebody is living alone, especially in the early days of quarantine, make sure we check in on them. So it's a lot of focusing on people, focusing on caring about one another. And I know it might sound a little kumbaya, but it is what it is, right? And then, as always, when you get on the call, you make sure everyone focuses on the mission. But none of that gets done without, just the day-to-day human kind of interactions and saying, how are you doing? What can we do to help? And just checking in. So.
Fantastic. Yes, job one, making sure that the troops are okay. Jim, how about you? Same question. You had to sort of pull on that strength and sort of work your way through all this uncertainty. Well, what'd you find yourself doing in regards to sort of leading through that uncertainty and unknown?
Yeah, I think part of it's just getting organized, right? We certainly learned it with Mission Act last year. And I think one of our colleagues here mentioned up front is, we used a team of teams approach, right? And getting organized across 10 different Scrum teams. So, kind of on the organizational side, put someone in charge, focus the efforts, but put the teams in Scrum and work stream format, meet repetitively throughout the day. So I think, again, we fell back on that best practice and we were able to deliver fast in terms of the capabilities that the department needs. I think the other thing too is, right, it's very easy for us to look back retrospectively here on the past 8 months and then, kind of pop the champagne cork a little bit. But, there were some pretty scary times back there in March and April, I think, for a lot of folks. I was certainly stressing out over how am I going to provision an environment where only about 60,000 people are teleworking and be prepared to support up to 400,000, right? And so part of it too, though, is caring for our teams. A lot easier said than done. A lot of IT professionals are able to go to remote work. 3,100 of our 8,000 workforce in OIT is in end user operations. They are supporting the 170 medical centers, the 56 benefits regional offices, and the 140 cemeteries. They can't go home. They were on the front line. I tell you what, we had understandably scared staff members, especially in the early days of COVID. So we did everything we could to build and maintain that confidence. Again, for the military guys out here and gals, it's battlefield circulation. That's why I'm in St. Petersburg today to do the town hall and meet face to face with both the business and our teammates. But again, building that confidence, showing that resilience, and then working through the problem sets, on that very agile and Scrum methodology, that team of teams approach.
Very focused on the mission, and once again focused on those employees, et cetera. Key element, key tenement here. Karen, how about you? What did you lean on there, right? You're actually in a unique situation. You're actually in two different departments during this process at the beginning of it and certainly now.
So I appreciate the comments that are coming from my colleagues here, because it is about the people. So I think, to your point, Luke, it's a unique situation for myself coming into a virtual environment and then building the team approach in a virtual environment and being a new leader and trying to have that consistency and work at the CXO level and up, right? Then working down with the other component CIOs and then working within my own organization. So it is about the people. And I think Rocky said it multiple times, but it's family first. And that was a principle that we talked about and that I made sure that we reinforced, and that's reinforced by our leadership from the secretary all the way down. And so having that flexibility because of the environment that we're in, and not saying, oh, people have to come to work. So I think what is also unique about this is the people who had a transition because they were physically on-prem. When you come into a virtual environment like myself, and I had been working 10 years already out, and so working on initiatives, which, by the way, kudos to you, sir, for being the U.S. Cyber Challenge lead, right? You're working already in a virtual environment. And so bringing those skill sets and bringing them in to get the team going, the technology allows you're not constrained by a conference room anymore. So some of these meetings that you normally would just have your XDs on, or the, SESs, or just the CIOs, you can expand out so that people are hearing from you personally and not what I call whisper down the lane translations, right? And so they get to hear the information directly. So we have been, normally they would have all hands quarterly, we're having them monthly, and our CXOs are actively participating in each other's all hands meeting. And that partnership in this virtual environment really sends a clear message out to all the workforce, because Rocky hit that piece also, is all the services that DHS has, like checking on somebody who is by themselves. Or, for example, my team has to travel with the secretary, making sure that they have the right resources and that there is a surveillance program in place with them because they go back to their families. And so do we have the right medical program in place for them? And that, when one of them tests positive, that we can rotate people through and readjusting our resources for those types of things. So those were the first things that I had to put in place. But there are benefits because they get to hear from you and you can expand out how you're interacting with the workforce in a virtual environment.
Yeah, really key there. I didn't even think about, the folks on the front line and then coming back into their homes and having to manage.
Exactly.
Very, very good point there. All right, we're going to take another short break, and we're going to be back in just a moment. You're listening to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network. Welcome back to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Radio. We're talking Profiles in Excellence 2020. We were talking about leadership and sort of the leadership tenets that you were drawing upon as we embarked on this very uncertain and unknown journey. Maria, I'm going to throw it over to you. And sort of, what did you find yourself sort of leaning on and tying to most as you sort of work through this uncertainty, certainly at the environment that you were operating at, you know, across the interagency, et cetera, must have been daunting. I'm sure it still is.
Yeah, thanks, Luke. You know, this is really where I want to, again, acknowledge the workforce in the federal government. You know, Rocky said earlier when we were talking, every day is different. And this year has been a year of change, right? But what that change did with the workforce, it gave us that opportunity to really innovate and challenge the norms and status quo that we have now, right? So the workforce, and I'm not talking about the CIOs, CFOs, and the leadership, but it was the workforce that really helped get the bureaucracy and the red tape out of the way, reduce those barriers to meet the mission. And leaning on that for workforce was just so critical, because it wasn't just flipping to telework, it was all those additional requirements from the CARES Act and maintaining that momentum even through all this change. I will tell you that while I was at the SBA, right, the CARES Act came through, we had days to respond to the requirements, and those requirements were changing sometimes daily. And it was that workforce that rolled out portals within days, was able to respond to the PPP loans, the EIDL grants, and they worked hours, overnighters, and projects that we had planned later in the year, everything moved to the left and we accelerated. And this is really leaning on a staff that can respond to that change and to that innovation. And you saw this across the federal government, that innovation, yet we were still staying secure and being incredibly responsive, while at the same time we were just getting that red tape and the bureaucracy out of the way. And I think that's critically important in acknowledging that flexibility and that ability to innovate and be creative and respond, even while you're flipping over to telework, the entire federal government, and responding to all those requirements. So I think leaning on the federal workforce that responded to the need to change and innovate and be creative and really address the mission, not 5 months from now, but within the next 24 hours.
Right, and 5 hours from now, right? Certainly is incredible and amazing, and hats off to all of you, and particularly watching what you had to do over there at SBA. It's just remarkable to see that transformation happen in such an instantaneous amount of time, right? And so important for the country on so many different levels. All right, well, we're going to start talking about priorities. We're going to start with you, Greg, over at App Dynamics, and we want you to highlight, point out, you know, what are your top 2 priorities over the next year?
Yeah, thanks again, Luke. So, you know, obviously the main priority is always to ensure that we have successful missions with our agencies that we work with. But, you know, when you start looking at that application space, and I talked about the observability side of things, we totally recognize that there's bigger challenges in the industry beside one specific tool to be able to fix things. So by opening our platform and being able to drive innovation from a automated fashion is the direction that we're moving. And that's one of our top priorities, because if you think about it, as things become more and more complex and agencies need to innovate, they need to be able to drive, you know, faster application adoption or faster features. Having that area of troubleshooting applications needs to be in automated fashion. It needs to have things happen quickly. So we've done things where we can start to integrate network metrics, application metrics, and then build automation on the you know, auto correcting side, so that folks can move forward with innovation. And that's really, you know, number 1 priority is to focus in that area. Number 2 is to ensure that we provide product sets that are going to be future proof. You know, you saw last decade move heavily into the cloud. What's the next decade going to bring? We want to make sure that we're front and center in those new advances in technology, so that we can provide the right insights and analytics, so that, you know, the leaders on this call can make the right decisions with their technology stacks.
Yeah, certainly don't want that technology dated. Needs some sort of technology forward type capability there. as we continue to transform. Every CIO has said, can't stay where we are. Got to keep moving as far as the modernization capability and staying in front of it. Scott, how about at BMC Software? Tell us what's your top 2 priorities there?
Yeah, so I think first and foremost, we want to make sure from a human resources perspective, we're very thoughtful about how we're bringing our employees back to work, and really, making sure that we provide them an environment, as the vaccines come out and things like that, that's safe, healthy, and productive, environment overall. I'll tell you that, I think that the pandemic has certainly changed the way that people look at, basically work from home, all of those different things. And, so that's going to be, a big priority for us, making sure our people are healthy and safe. Number 2, from a technology perspective, we've been going through a digital transformation for the past 10 years and shutting down dozens of data centers and modernizing SaaS first approach with regards to our business systems and things like that. But really, BMC in the past has operated in silos of different products, and really our new vision is what we call the autonomous digital enterprise. And what does that mean? That really, it basically, it takes digital transformation to the next level. So automation everywhere, complete DevOps and agile, development principles, bringing all the data together in a common data set and repository, whether it's your monitoring tools, your ITSM tools, your automation tools, whatever they might be, whether it's mainframe or distributed, having all of that data readily available for our customers so they can really mine and get really the insights that they need to manage and maintain their business. And then, just trying to make sure that we're doing everything at really an adaptive cybersecurity level, as well, providing a transcending customer experience. So, really taking all of these tools, bring them into this platform type of approach, and then offering all of those different, platforms, our ADE platform, in a SaaS-based environment. That, really all the I'd say business that we're seeing now is SaaS. There's plenty of on-prem stuff still, but offering all of these different tools and capabilities in a SaaS environment.
Really positioning yourself for that cloud smart environment, right? That everyone talks about there. Super important.
That's exactly right, Luke.
Hey, Nick, how about over at Pure Storage? Top 2 priorities there for you all going forward over this next year.
Yeah, so from our perspective, very similar to BMC, and I'm sure this is a perspective that's being shared really across the industry in response to how customers want to consume enterprise infrastructure, applications, and services. We don't see ourselves as a storage company, but as a data service company. So our focus is really on evolving and to address the full scope of data services and data integration from end to end to deliver what we call a modern data experience. Our customers, especially in the US government, are looking for ways to leverage their data on premises and some of the largest infrastructure in the world, and then move that, leverage it, make it available across every infrastructure platform that they can consume. So a lot of that is the public cloud. And then there's obviously the data protection, integrity, and security aspects of this well. So from end to end, the data lifecycle, we're seeking to help facilitate addressing that. So our top priorities are transforming the entire data services experience to make it consumable as a subscription service, whether that's on-premises data service platforms or cloud-based data service infrastructure, application services, et cetera. And then make the implementation and utilization of those services invisible and infinite. We want customers basically to be, if we're doing our jobs well, we literally disappear into the IT infrastructure fabric. They don't even know it's there. The data just is there. It's performant. The applications run well. And the idea, we know we're successful in this endeavor when agencies are simply able to focus on application service delivery and integration and innovation, and simply assume that that can be implemented as a matter of course, regardless of whether that data is on premises or hosted in other infrastructure. And the second fundamental thing, because we work with data, is on hardening the security of these data services in the infrastructure appliances and the online services. So this is a huge, for us, whole of corporate effort to ensure we can deliver those capabilities to our customers, those services that they need to ensure the integrity of their systems and their data, to ensure statutory and regulatory compliance. But most importantly, without having to wrestle the infrastructure into submission to make it happen. You know, from our perspective, and we've proven this over and over again, and it's been seen everywhere, when security is built into the platforms and services that are procured, it is tremendously more efficient and more effective than when it has to be bolted on afterwards. So the standards are out there. The government publishes them freely and openly. We know what our building code is. So the move for us is to actually start engineering to that code to make it much easier for us to obtain the necessary certification, and therefore make it a lot simpler and more efficient for our customers to consume it. So those are our biggest initiatives for the next couple of years.
Absolutely, and two very important ones. Rocky, how about at Department of Energy? I know you got a whole building full of priorities over there. Give us your top two.
Top, I think, goes without saying, making sure people can continue to work where they're safe, right? So wherever that is, continue to work. The second one, a little bit different, is we want to make sure that we are better protecting our control systems across the department, right? We've done a great job on IT. Well, we constantly are doing a good job on IT, and we've got a good focus on that. But how do we look at OT and control systems? Not just from, I talked about the PMA earlier, the power marketing, but we have our scientific user facilities. We have construction sites. We have control systems all across the department, and we want to continue to improve our security of those systems. So the big ones are making sure people can work wherever they want to work, control system security, and then all of that, kind of the fundamental of all of that is continue to innovate, right? That culture of innovation and reducing that friction so people can innovate. So those are kind of the top two or three.
Right, that power grid must be absolutely secured and reliable. It's super important. Jim, how about at Veterans Affairs? Once again, I can't imagine all the priorities there, but give us the top two that are right on the in the top of the job jar for you guys.
Sure, Luke. And of course, all of these are aligned to our business and mission essential functions, across our diversified line of health, benefits, memorial services, and other ancillary activities. The two that I'll mention here would be a continuation of our digital transformation. And again, we talked about a lot of successes, but certainly there were some things inside the pandemic that reveal weaknesses, some known, some unknown. So continuing our digital transformation journey, a lot of that around data, right? It's one of the reasons we're called the Office of Information and Technology at VA. We leverage the power of information through our corporate data warehouse. We didn't have a chance to mention it, but our national surveillance tool really provided VHA with that single source of truth across the entire integrated healthcare systems to inform the decisions of the leadership throughout, and to share it really with the COVID task force as well as one of the leading healthcare agencies in the department, the federal government. Certainly our digital experience, Nick talked about his experience as a veteran. You're going to see more and more the app economy coming to VA around va.gov. Especially our older veterans, they want to meet on those digital channels on mobile and whatever. We will accelerate that. I talk a lot, I'll talk about it in our town hall this morning here in Florida, is tech is disrupting our industry partners. It's disrupting us, right? But it's disrupting us in a good way. I think we've mentioned it on the call here. A lot of opportunities for automation, a lot of opportunities for application performance monitoring, IT service management, using emerging tech around artificial intelligence and machine language. So again, we're going to look to take advantage of that disruption and get more efficient while we need more resources as well. Maria mentioned workforce, doubling down on workforce. I know there's really great work in the CIO Council with that, infrastructure, software, all that stuff in our digital transformation. The other one I'd mention here as a priority is, and again, I was really pleased from a vendor partnership standpoint during the pandemic. The the Defense Production Act is a bit of a Cold War relic, and we use that as a hot wash item in the CIO Council. In a pandemic, we really kind of didn't have the priority that technology and the healthcare agencies needed to service it. I didn't mention earlier that the VA, in the time of a national emergency, VHA principally, becomes the national healthcare system of record because of its presence throughout the country. So again, I know we've got some work there, but our vendor partners absolutely stepped up. I did dozens in March and April of vendor engagements with C-suite leaders. I can't say enough about their capability, even in a disrupted supply chain environment, to step up with us, scrum on some really wicked problems, solve fast, and provide the capabilities that our industry partners really have to do in order for us to continue to do what we do. So more on that. We've got almost $2 billion of tech spend annually, $28 billion in the department. So can't say enough about the importance of having that strong vendor partnership.
Yeah, amen on that. It's a very good point. Everyone leaning on a lot of those same key vendors, and boy, they really stepped up and made it happen. So kudos to all of them. Karen, how about over Department of Homeland Security? Top 2 priorities for you as you work through the next year over there.
So I echo what my colleagues have talked about returning to work safely, that is the top priority of the department overall. But I'm going to lump a lot of things into one priority, which is we can't miss a beat on any of the initiatives that we have underway, like EIS transformation, the DECO procurement, all of those things that we have to do. But I am going to go a little bit back to the roots for the second priority, because I don't want to re-echo a lot of the other pieces, which is the Chief Information Officer here at the Department of Homeland Security, and I'm sure with the other departments, is I'm also the Chief Risk Officer. And so really looking at risk management, to use the strategic use of information. As you know, we have many information holdings throughout the department, and making sure that those are available for mission space. We manage $7.2 or $7.4 billion of IT investment. So how do you do that with an ever-changing risk landscape? So I'm going to throw in there supply chain risk management, because that does involve all our industry partners. And that is something that we are very focused on with our major acquisitions going forward. And how are we going to manage that supply chain risk, the manufacturing, the advanced manufacturing, knowing that CBP is installing the equipment that they need to install, that is not opening up a threat vector for our nation state adversaries. So supply chain risk management, integration with FedRAMP on all of these things, so that we can take advantage of what our industry partners are doing while we are managing the risk for the department.
Very key piece there, and good catch. That so important across the interagency, right? As you pointed out, every single agency has this situation that they really need to keep an eye on that and make sure that doesn't sort of sneak up on them, if you will, and cause a lot of detrimental issues there. Maria, you're sitting at sort of the across the interagency, right? Looking at a lot of different moving parts here. A whole bunch of priorities that you all have already knocked off, a whole bunch more to go. Give us the top 2. Take us home here on sort of what as an aggregate, what are the top 2 priorities coming out of the White House these days?
Yeah, Luke, that list is a mile long, like you said, lots of things in play, lots executing right now. But I would say first, the federal government has to continue its transformation, the digital transformation my colleagues talked about. And that sustained IT modernization, right? The government has to be digital, nimble, resilient, secure. And we talked about AI and other technologies. In that digital transformation, we have to keep on with that, because it's not a one-off activity, and that requires sustained long-term investments. And really, the government has to adopt new techniques, technologies, approaches. And it also requires us to have foster that culture that embraces the risk, even that Karen talked about, right? We have to embrace risk to some degree, and agile adoption, and really encourages innovation, and not just in technology, but everything else, like acquisition, right? That digital delivery is a necessity for our customers, whether they're internal or external, the American public. And second, I think I want to highlight that large modernization projects take time, funding, flexibility to manage well. And I think, as a priority, this is where, Congress can help. Overly restrictive deadlines, one-year funding, they create risk and uncertainty in a lot of the programs and projects across the federal government. We've got funding flexibilities like the TMF and the working capital funds, but we really need to look at that sustained long-term modernization, not just that digital transformation I talked about first, but really that sustainment and having that funding and flexibility to really drive the long-term modernization and the transformation that we need. Again, that multi-year funding to sustain that modernization, that remains, and we really need to continue to drive in that direction.
Well, I'm glad to see you highlighting that. And certainly I know that every CIO out there firmly is behind you on that and knows that they have to keep refreshing that infrastructure and the train tracks, the highway system, so to speak, to make sure all these capabilities can run on that and perform all the things that you are doing. I just want to say on behalf of every person in this country, I just want to thank every one of you. You're absolutely warriors. Your employees are warriors. If people could see the things that you all do behind the scenes, I'm sure they'd just be blown away. So I'm really happy to provide this platform that you all can express some of these capabilities and get it out there so people can understand it and appreciate it. I'd also like to thank the sponsors for supporting us on this show. I'd like to thank the good people here at Federal News Network that make our program so successful and enjoyable. And most of all, I'd like to thank you, the listening audience out there that tune in every month. You've been listening to the Federal Executive Forum, part of the Federal News Network.